Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the Don't Get Last Guillotine podcast. I'm your host, Joe Harris. With me today, for the first time, hopefully not the last time, yet another member of the Fantasy Gazette Memorial Guillotine League. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Kent Weyrauch. Kent, welcome in. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on. A lot of fun. That Fantasy Gazette, man, I miss that website and his tweets and articles and stuff he would put up. It was so funny. It's a shame
I
he
did
had to
too. He was so
put it to
good.
bed, but it was fun being in that guillotine league together. I made it pretty far. I did pretty good. I got to tell
Mhm.
you right up front. I know we're on a guillotine chop slash whatever podcast here.
Right.
I have never won a guillotine league. I still have not done that.
Really?
Haven't been in a ton of them over the years, but
Mhm.
certainly enough where I should have been close, and we're not there yet.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully this is the year, you'll be in at least one more, maybe add one or two extra to the repertoire. I feel like they're not a big commitment if you don't want them to be,
Hmm.
because if you ever get tired of one, you can just, lose, and then you don't have to do it
Yeah.
anymore. It's great.
Yeah, that is kind of a weird, like, washing over you feeling after you lose. You're like, man, I can't believe I lost this week. And then, someone like me, I'm in like 15 leagues every year. It's like, oh wait,
Mhm.
that's one less thing I have to
That
check
might
every week.
right.
So
That
it,
might
it
be for
actually
the
kind of
best.
feels good in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, my girlfriend was like, "Oh, no, I'm so sorry," every time I would get eliminated from one because I played 6 guillotine leagues last year, and she was like, "Oh, no, that's
Nice.
so terrible. Anyways,
Yeah,
can we
right.
go to the farmer's market, please?"
Exactly.
So, speaking of the Fantasy Gazette Memorial Guillotine League, wanted to go through the draft and the demise as we do with everyone. We're gonna start with this draft here. I loved this draft, and I went back and I looked at my, rankings show that I did where I ranked everyone's draft from this league. I had you ranked, I wanna say 3rd. Um, I
Okay.
thought that it was really solid. I liked strategically a lot of what happened here. So, for those of you who were just listening, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Trey McBride, James Conner, Devonta Smith, Tyrone Tracy, and Jordan Mason were the real highlights of it. I've always loved Amon-Ra St. Brown as a guillotine pick. Just a very safe floor type of a guy. The the 40-point weeks don't really move me for this format. You need the guy who's running every route, catching 6 passes. And that's Amon-Ra. Obviously, Trey McBride was an excellent pick. Um, James Conner was the first thing where I was a little bit hesitant on, just because I generally don't want to take a running back and a pass catcher from the same team
Mm.
in guillotine leagues, and especially towards the top of a draft. But I mean, the rest of these guys were great. I love how you ended the draft too, just drafting a bunch of backup running backs
Hmm.
because you understood that once the end of week 1 happens, there would be insane waiver wires. You don't want a rookie sleeper who you feel the need to sit and stash for a while. Sitting there, you can just cut Emmanuel Wilson, no problem, no questions asked, to pick up anyone you need. Did you have a specific strategy in mind drafting this team, or was this just sort of saw what you saw, like what you like?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit on some of the notes. I wanted a reliable receiver early, someone that I could just trust every single week. The running back situation, I pulled up the draft board because I was curious myself. James Conner was a little bit of an end of a run panic pick. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
sitting there with wide receiver, tight end, and not a running back on my roster yet. And these big drafts in guillotine leagues, you can get stuck with really bad running backs really, really quickly.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think I can trust myself to find a receiver that's like a spot play a lot more reliably than a running back. So I think that was probably the general idea of why I ended up going Connor there. And then, getting Devonta Smith on the way back was, I think, good value at the time.
Oh, yeah.
His season wasn't like electric or anything, but he was fine for the most part. And
Yeah.
then, those middle round wide receivers all kind of had like camp steam last year. Torrey
Mhm.
Horton, I believe I got some playable weeks out of him, honestly, early in the year, if I remember right.
Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely
it was
before
not
the
too bad
Shaheed
overall.
trade and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So A lot of bullets in the chamber at the end, like you say, on the running back position, easy cuttable guys. But if, like Roshan Johnson, we weren't sure if he was going to like jump up in that backfield last year. Devin Neal got some like mini camp, even though he was a later round draft pick, he got some steam in camp that he was going to, Kamara was aging. So it's like, who's going to take over that duty? So you basically nailed the general idea. I don't have a huge strategy when it comes to these. I probably should. Maybe that's why I don't win any of them. But you got to kind of take
strategy episode later this summer.
Oh well, I should. I probably need it. But like I say with James Conner and those positional runs, you got to really be nimble in terms of what you're willing to do. You can't really stick to a strategy like 100% because you'll go south on a position real quick.
Yeah, easily. I don't think that the strategies should be as position centric as like best ball people talk about. When you go on or when you listen to a best ball show, they'll be like, okay, yeah, I want to have 2 quarterbacks, 7 running backs, 8 wide receivers, and 3 tight ends. And that's just not, you can't lock yourself into that sort of thing here. So I think that you did a very good job. And I think that's another thing I noted in that episode of navigating the draft board. You survived until week 13. That's an excellent performance. You got eliminated with 0 fab left. You emptied the tank, which is what you like to see. You don't want to see people getting eliminated with, 10, 20% of a budget left. You want to see them go down swinging. 77 points scored. Needed the 97 to survive. This was entirely on the Amon-Ra St. Brown injury. And when you get that late in the year, a stud like that getting hurt, that's what'll get you chopped. That was just an honorable way to go.
Yeah, I remember some of the guys I took chances on in the waivers were not great. Like a DK Metcalf, I just pulled up the roster when it got chopped. So I don't remember the exact order, but I think I got DK Metcalf pretty early on. Rico Dowdle, he was a vision for my team last year when he started going off against those weaker defenses. So that kind of powered me through the middle of the year with this kind of good foundation that I had. But then, Rico kind of slowed down. I had Trey Benson. He got hurt. Tyrone Tracy was just like fine. It just kind of went south quick after that.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to keep going along once you've hit that 0 fab and you're looking around. Because I remember that Jagger and Akash both had just gobs of money and were swallowing up every free agent. It's hard to keep cockroaching through it until the end. But
definitely
a good performance, a very good performance. So this. I hadn't said it yet in the episode. This is the AFC West episode. When I asked you what division you wanted to do, what made you say AFC West?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about, and it's the first player you got on the list, first team on the list, is Pat Mahomes. There's obviously a lot of good fantasy players in this division, so there's enough to talk about. There's some kind of sleeper guys in here too. And then there's, the Raiders, but there's at least still some usable guys there. We'll talk about them. But yeah, Pat Mahomes, you've got some good notes here, but talking about the kind of difference that has happened with his offensive coordinator over the years. And then, some people say Tyreek Hill was also a big factor in some of his play too, but that season that Tyreek Hill left, but he still had Eric Bieniemy as his offensive coordinator. He had his most yards of his career and still had like 40 plus touchdowns. I don't remember the exact number. So he clearly will benefit from Matt Nagy leaving and getting Eric Bieniemy back. I think that's going to be good for him. It'll be still basically Andy Reid's offense, but just without any of the Nagy influence. So I'm very excited for him. He's still a good player. Like you said, we're never going to see QB14 next to his name the rest of our lives. And he's going low in drafts right now. He's a great value. He has every possibility of returning back to that form that we saw him at before.
100%. Do you think he plays week 1? I feel like part of the QB14 tag is because some people don't believe he's going to be on the field Monday Night Football.
That's, possible. I will say he's the kind of guy who, if he's close, I think he pushes to play. So there's that component of it. This is a team that's in a challenging division. So if they want to have a chance at winning it, which they do with Pat Mahomes,
Right.
you always do. You want to start as soon as possible. So I think if he's close to playing, he will. But injuries, especially in the offseason, are such a quagmire. It's really hard to get a good read on some of this stuff. So we'll see how training camps are just getting off the ground. We'll get some more updated news there, I'm sure. He's not going to be in any of the preseason games, of course. So it's just a matter of if he's feeling comfortable by week 1, and if he's close, I bet he goes. So
yeah,
we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of my stance on it.
I think the fact that he's playing against the Broncos in week 1, it makes me feel like he's probably going to be there and going to be active, just because that's not a game that, if the Chiefs want to win the division, you can't
Very
start
important one.
a game and a half basically behind Denver. That's a lot of ground to make up. I also have notes in here about his scramble yard. So, I mean, he was QB2 in points per game last season, and he did that a lot off the back of him running. I know there's an ACL injury, but like, we've seen Patrick Mahomes play with lower body injuries. We saw him in the Super Bowl years ago against the Eagles when he was limping to and from the huddle, and he would still just break off a run whenever he saw the opportunity. So for that reason, I'm not especially worried about the rushing decline. I'm certain that it's going to be closer to the 300 yards that we'd seen in the past to the 500 yards that we saw last year.
Sure.
But I don't think that he Matt Stafford or Jared Goff's it going forward.
No, and he's very much like an Aaron Rodgers type rusher, where his choices and where he's going for it, he's going for those first downs to basically clear the line and then get out of bounds immediately. He's not going to charge upfield, throw a shoulder down like Josh Allen. That's not his game. So, but he's really, really good at it when he picks his spots. He was 4th last year in rush EPA despite missing those games. So he's still a really, really good rusher. He's a smart rusher. He's just not like a
smart rusher. That's what I noted in here for. He had the lowest percentage of his scrambles in the NFL coming when pressured. And so what that says to me is, like, he sees the opportunity to run and he runs. It's not the pocket's breaking down and he runs because he doesn't move backward and keep his eyes downfield. He's running because his eyes are downfield, and that's just what you want to do. People play loads of man coverage against the Chiefs, and that makes it way easier for someone to run on them. I think that people are overreacting to him scrambling less. I think that a lot of narratives other than the ACL, obviously, point to.
I was just going to say, early in the year, it might be a lot lower than we're expecting, but I bet by week 6, he's back to his normal game plan. That's my opinion. Yeah.
100%. I do feel a little bit like you want to draft for early in the season, and him maybe not being as hot early. I can understand feeling a little wishy-washy about that, but again, this is QB 14. Like, the guy going immediately after him at QB 15 is Malik Willis.
Like, God. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's
like
Mahomes
I
every
feel
time.
a lot more.
Come on, what are we doing?
Let's take the guy with a couple of MVPs. I think he's probably a little bit safer week 1.
I will say in a guillotine specifically, you might have a little bit more of that worry for sure. But it's for season length. I mean, Mahomes 100% over Willis.
This is the smash pick. Speaking of smash picks, another player I love. Like, I know I sound a bit like a Chiefs homer. Don't worry. Later, like the next few players after this, I'm going to be very, very against. But at RB11, Kenneth Walker he's finally getting what a lot of people have been pounding the table for years, of the RB1 undisputed workload. And when he's gotten that workload, he has been excellent. Last year, he never dropped below 14 PPR points when he was given 15 touches in a game. He was, and I think he's probably going to get that in most games this season.
Sure.
I'd be very surprised if they are somehow not in a game script that allows them to run the ball. I think that a lot of the problems with Kenneth Walker that he's had with other coaching staffs are a lack of decisiveness. That's something that you heard coming out of college. That's the reason that they had Zach Charbonnet in there at the goal line. That's the reason that they had, um, was it Rashad Penny who was splitting with him very early on in his Seahawks career?
Yeah, that sounds right. As Penny was on his kind of way out with the injuries and
Mhm.
stuff. Mhm.
Right. Um, but these are the same problems that DeAndre Swift saw for the entirety of DeAndre Swift's career. And then DeAndre Swift gets 1 year with the Ben Johnson slash Eric Bieniemy running back rehabilitation program, and then it's excellent. He's hitting the hole very quickly, and so I think you can see something similar to that, if not something identical to that, really, with Kenneth Walker finally being able to be a decisive runner, and that's something the Chiefs have lacked for
Yeah.
the last couple of years,
Yeah,
unless you
Kareem
count
Hunt's
the
so
right.
old and slow. I mean, he's been like their basically lead running back for a little bit here, and it's nice to
Yeah.
see the cannonball that is Kenneth Walker. First of all,
Mhm.
great name, great initials. This guy's got
Yes.
some good starting attributes here, but yeah, he's just fun to watch. I mean, at the end of the day, this is something we want to do to like enjoy ourselves. And yes, I love his metrics, and yes, like he's a good pick at his ADP and everything like that. But he's just so friggin' fun to watch that
Mhm.
I'm going to pick him in as many leagues as it's feasible where I'm not overdrafting him, I guess. But it's he's in a good spot. There's no running back competition, in my opinion, in this room. So this is the best running back they've had in quite a while. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, going back to the Mahomes offense opening back up under Bieniemy, like I think that
Mhm.
means that they're going to also have more room to run the ball too, where you have this choice between, are you going to defend Rashee Rice, who we'll talk about in a minute? You're going to defend Kelsey, who's old but still Kelsey.
Mhm.
Are you going to defend against the scramble from Mahomes? And then you've got Kenneth Walker back here, who's capable of running through a multiple of different scheme types. So he's really, really solid. I'm very excited for him this year.
Mhm. I like what you said about, like, this being the best Chiefs running back we've seen in a while. This is probably the best Chiefs running back we've seen since either rookie Kareem Hunt, who played, like, 18 games with the Chiefs, or Jamal Charles. Like, Jamal Charles would
Yeah.
be he's probably not better than that, but
As I say, Kareem
it's
Hunt had
just
a good season, so I think it's fair to say, like in terms of production, that's probably
mhm,
the cap. But I do think that Kenneth Walker is better than Kareem Hunt was in terms of talent. So you
yes,
can go that route too.
wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And I do think that he's a boon to the rest of the pass catching offense just because no defense cared at all about the Chiefs' ability to run the ball, um, in for several years now. The Chiefs faced since 2022, they faced the fewest light boxes in the NFL, and that's just total light boxes. And that's a team that runs a lot of plays because
Yeah.
they're in a lot of games. It's not like the Titans or the Raiders for the last few years, whose offenses have not been able to stay on the field. Despite all of that, the Chiefs still face the lowest number of light boxes in the NFL. I think that either Kenneth Walker is a huge home run for that reason, or we see the passing offense get way back, rocketed up.
Yeah.
And if it does, then he hopefully scores some touchdowns for you.
I think that's very
I like
possible.
this pick a lot. Rashi Rice, wide receiver 12. This is a PPR only pick, unless you play in a league that gets PPA, points per rests, at which point he does become an automatic first round pick. Um, I have a lot of concerns with Rashi Rice. I don't want to draft him per se, but also the value has he's been a great value on draft day every year for the last 3 years because when he's been on the field, he's produced like a top 5 wide receiver. It's just been a
Mhm.
question of, is he hurt? Is he suspended? Is he hurt again? And that's not something that I want to have to ask myself. Um, but if my concerns are injuries or very unlikely suspensions, those are probably gonna happen later in the year, and he's probably gonna be able to get you off to a safe start. So I go back and forth a lot on Rashee Rice. Where
Yeah.
you fall for the most part
Yeah,
on Rice.
like the off the field stuff is it's hard to really get a peg on. And we get this information kind of like on the fly sometimes. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, now I have to suddenly shift and transition on the fly to learn what we get through the courts or something like that. I do think based on where we're standing right now, like I don't think he's going to be suspended this year. But again, it's hard to really know for sure. The NFL's also not exactly consistent when it comes to some of this stuff, but I think the current disputes are somewhat in a lull right now. So we'll see. But in terms of what he does on the field, he's a good receiver. He's not an elite receiver, but when he's putting up fantasy points, I don't really care about what kind of NFL receiver he is, so to speak. So he's, kind of like a slant god type dude. He's a little bit more branched out than Michael Thomas was, but certainly kind of in that same vein. And the low A dot is certainly something that kind of caps his, I guess you could say, upside. But in a form of PPR, it's who cares? I mean, he was getting like an average of double-digit targets when he's playing. So it's going to be a lot of fun if he's on the field and playing with this offense that we've talked about, and we think it's going to be better. If he's off the field, things are going to fall apart pretty quick because, as we'll talk about, there's not many receivers that are kind of in either good or in their prime left on this team. So it's a little bit shaky as a foundation, but it seems like it's good if they can keep it together.
Yeah. So I have a question. When you hear people talking about Rashee Rice, the way he plays football, when you hear people like Matt Harmon on Reception Perception, guys who are, know way more about wide receivers than probably anyone in the space. They like to say that Rashee Rice is effectively an extension of the run game, that a lot of those short targets function effectively like a handoff.
Yeah,
With the existence now of a running game, do you think that might cap that PPR upside that we'd see in
certainly
years past?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you say cap the upside? Because the other way I would like to spin it is that if you have an effective run game, then you're not relying on those, running through the air type, bubble screens and, plays in the flat and stuff like that. So you can actually utilize them a little bit more downfield. And I know that they have some other deep threat type of guys, but you can get them on crossers and breaking routes and digs and stuff like that. And that's a lot more effective than some of the screen game stuff that he's been utilized for these last couple years. So I think there's kind of two sides to that coin, and opening up everything could be a benefit to him. I don't think it's going to come at a cost. Like, I don't think the Chiefs are all of a sudden going to become a run first team. I don't think that's really in the cards with Pat Mahomes. So that's I think it would be more likely to help Rashee Rice personally.
Fair. I mean, we have seen though, when the Ravens acquired Derrick Henry, when the Bills really started getting James Cook going, like, just because teams have one of the best quarterbacks alive, it doesn't mean that they're not willing to use that to leverage and to run. So I think that there are people making the assumption that he's going to continue getting the 10 targets per game, because someone has to get the targets. I just don't necessarily think that he keeps up that unbelievable level of production. Now, he might get more valuable targets. He might get, one target on a crosser instead of two screens, but it might just be a little bit more up and down.
Yeah, that's fair.
Than people expect. Speaking of up and down, the wide receiver 50 being drafted this year, Xavier Worthy. Hey, the highs are high. Okay, he has the most yards in a Super Bowl for a rookie ever, and don't pay attention to when those yards came and what the score was of the game when that happened.
Okay.
Genuinely the epitome of the. I put the Gary Treeman tweet on there. I put this on a few slides of the, if anyone is referred to as a former first rounder, they are turbo dog shit.
It's so true, though. It's such a good tweet.
You never see someone referred to as former first rounder when they're good. Xavier Worthy is the epitome of a former first rounder player. He's going to be signed by the Minnesota Vikings in 2 years, and the Schefter tweet's going to read, former first-round pick Xavier Worthy signs.
Don't do that to me. Yeah, you know I'm a Vikings fan, right? So, no,
you know what? I did know that, and I completely forgot it because
it's all good.
That was genuinely just the team that popped into my head.
Yeah, I think the problem is they tried, because he is a former first rounder. They tried to plug him into that top dog role, and it didn't really work. I mean, he's just not capable of, filling all the different spots of the field in a good way. He's good deep. He's a very fast runner. We know the age old story of drafting the fast wide receiver in the first round, and it ends up not working. I mean, it's just time and time again. It just seems like it seems to be the case. So
it didn't work.
I never had high hopes for him in terms of being an elite top tier guy, but if he's a wide receiver 3 on a team, perfect. I think he's a great, if the Vikings did sign him, I'd actually probably be happy because he'd be behind Jefferson, probably Addison if we still got him. But anyway, that's a hypothetical. We'll ignore that for now. But he can't play well against press and man coverage and stuff like that. He just doesn't have the frame for it. I guess I don't know his contested catch numbers off the top of my head, but I can't imagine they're great. So
those are not good. I have seen him make one good contested catch play, but for the most part, I mean, to make a contested catch play, you sort of have to be downfield. And for someone as fast as he is, his metrics downfield are just abysmal. And I don't know if that's because, for whatever reason, him and Patrcik Mahomes just aren't on the same page, because Mahomes does overthrow this guy a ton. It's hard to understand why that one keeps happening. You see him go slow in a lot of routes. You see his feet come down out of bounds for no reason. That was more of a thing that happened his rookie year than it did last year. But just rough. And then obviously he was playing hurt all of last year. And I don't like to project injuries, but at the end of the day, if I weigh more than an NFL player, that NFL player is probably more likely than average to get hurt.
Man, I don't want to start playing that game. It's going to start making me feel bad real quick.
So the guillotine outlook, I don't see many situations where I'm willing to draft him. He's completely, I think, undraftable. I'm going to let someone else make that pick. There's other guys going in that range who I would rather pick. Tell you what, you talk for a second about him. I'm going to look at the wide receivers in that range just to give us a little feel for it.
Yeah, 100%. So it's like, what are you going to do with him if you draft him as your wide receiver 2? I mean, he could easily put up a goose egg one week. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he's the guy who literally sinks your season in a guillotine league. And if you draft him any later, like wide receiver 3 or flex, maybe then you're comparing, maybe as a flex, I could see it just go for an upside like touchdown play, but he had 1 touchdown last year. So what upside really is there? And granted, we had the issues with Mahomes being injured. Worthy had his own issues. The offense struggling with Nagy. So there's maybe reasons for that, but that upside is not as illustrious as I think we thought it would be when he was coming into the league.
To me, it's more of a player of let's say it's week 5 or 6 and I've got guys on bye and it looks like I'm going to be the guy who's getting chopped. My Thursday night player played awful. And so it's like, you know what? I'm going to slide this guy into the flex and I'm going to hope that this is the week that he catches a 60-yard bomb. Right.
That's all you can hope for. The one play.
But the guys going around him, you're looking at Jaden Reed in Green Bay. I like Romeo Dobbs. I like Jalen Coker. I like Casey Concepcion.
Oh, yeah.
All of them better. So it's hard for me to want him on my team when I can just look at the names beneath him and be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that guy's getting me 8 points.
Yep. I agree. You need some semblance of floor in your players, even if they are an upside guy. And Worthy doesn't have much of that. So
no, never has.
Yeah.
Never has. But moving on to the tight end 9, Travis Kelce, he has had that floor. He had the longest streak in NFL history of consecutive games with at least 3 catches. And I know 3 catches isn't exactly anything to write home about, but in PPR, that's 3 points. However many yards come from that, probably 20 or so yards. That's a minimum 5 points. At the tight end position, you've got a lot of guys who can go below that. So
Yeah, yeah. I will say, like this year in particular, the tight end position is always a mystery. I mean, you have your 4 or 5 guys at the top, and then beyond that, it flattens out really quick. This year does feel like there's some late round guys that are more in the playable realm, but I'm 100% sure that statement will be wrong in 3 weeks into the season. So
yeah.
maybe that's kind of a fool's gold type situation, but I can't see myself taking Kelsey very often, especially not in Guillotine.
Mhm.
I was looking at his game logs last year. He was mostly good until later in the season. Is when he had his real duds. Like he was fine early. He was probably not going to sink your ship, but certainly not
Mhm.
providing that Travis Kelsey of old type box scores. He did not even crest 100 yards once last year, which I know is a
No.
high bar, but he's Travis Kelsey and he's done it
Yeah.
in years past. So you have some kind of memory of that you're hoping to get, and it just didn't come to fruition.
Mhm. I think it's similar to what I said about Worthy along the lines of there are a lot better and safer guys going after him at probably more important positions. Just the tight end 9 fall off zone is like it he's sort of at that last tier of, "Oh, this is the tight end who I feel kinda good about." I feel like those middling tight ends, you always look back at those draft picks every year and you go, "Man, drafting guys tight ends like 5 through 10 or 5 through 12, there's just always so many better guys going after them.
Yeah,
I should have
yeah.
just taken a wide receiver or a running back there." But then every year in draft season, it rolls around, it's like, "Oh my gosh, Harold Fannin and Sam Laporta, these guys might be incredible, incredible values." Kyle Pitts, guys, he just turned 25. It's time. Um, and then you see guys like all of the Jaguars wide receivers going after them. You're seeing Josh Downs going after them. And, maybe Travis Kelsey does perform better than tight end 9. I kind of expect he does. I think that he's probably going to be closer to a tight end 7 because there will be a couple of busts ahead of him. But the points that he's going to give you week 1 are not going to be that much different than the points that, a Dalton Schultz or a Chigo Okonkwo, I think,
No,
is gonna
100%
give you
agree.
week
Yeah.
1, and I'd rather take a swing at someone who can matter at a more valuable position.
Plus, he's married now, and if I can speak from experience, he's going to get fat. I just like that. It's just going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kids are on their horizon. I have no idea. They're very high profile people, so maybe that's not
Mhm.
in the cards for them. But
Right.
that path is just it's not a healthy one, at least for the first couple years. It's not until you start. Kids are older, doing their own things. That's when you get back into that health kick, and you have your
Yeah.
midlife crisis. Me and Travis Kelsey were pretty much the same age, so
Mhm.
but anyway, just thought it was funny, and I don't think that that whole saga is going to have any really great impact on the field. I think now, actually, he's kind of into a quieter portion of it. Kind of the
Mhm.
dating and like, oh, is he going to propose? Not that I care about any of this stuff, but like it was just a lot of attention that he had
There
to
was a
deal
lot of
with on
attention
a
going
week to
to it.
week basis. So I think now everyone's kind of like, they're married. Who cares? Like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Move on.
And
NFL
he can just go
players.
out and play. So
Yeah. That's true. I I also think that he's going to see some positive regression in terms of his drops because,
yeah,
oh my god, he only had 6 drop passes last year, which isn't a ton, but he turned those into the funniest interceptions you will ever watch.
that's right. Yeah.
Um, Fun fact, since the year 2020, there are 2 players in the NFL who have had 3 drops in a season be turned into interceptions.
Really. And
One of them is named
who's
Travis
yeah.
Kelce. Can you guess the other one?
Oh my
The other
god.
one is Tyreek Hill in
Oh,
2021.
okay. Back in 2021. Okay, that's super funny. Wow.
Yeah,
Both for the Chiefs.
right.
Yeah, because he went to
And,
Miami in 2022, right? So yeah, that's
mhm,
nuts.
it is nuts. And don't get me wrong, they would have had a third go to that list if they didn't go ahead and bench Kadarius Toney back in
Oh,
back in
don't get me started
2023.
on Tony, man. Nah.
Oh, I made so many bad trades concerning Kadarius Toney. I thought I saw him in that Jaguars game. I was like, this is gonna be the guy. They finally
I
found their guy.
can going back a little bit to like the Xavier Worthy type thing is when you get these guys who are like, oh, they're so dangerous if you get the ball in their hands. That's a red flag. That is,
Yeah.
you want the guys who can catch the ball. You don't
Yes.
need to get the ball in their hand through tricks and gadget plays and stuff like that. That's not the type of player you want on your team. And besides, Kadarius Toney, he would run a 20-yard route and he'd go left and right about 30 yards each way every single time he tried to make a juke. It was infuriating to watch.
Yeah, but that Cowboys game will live on in our memories.
You'll have it forever. Yeah.
100%. And then some scrubs that we probably don't need to talk for very long about on the Chiefs. We'll start with Noah Gray. This is a barely draftable player. This is not remotely a draftable player. This is like, if you have a sneaking suspicion that Travis Kelce is going to retire, then you draft Noah Gray. Otherwise, nothing happening there. I hope that the Chiefs run a little bit more 12 personnel. I hope that they get under center a little bit more with Eric Bieniemy, taking some stuff from the Bears. But for the most part, God, I hope it's not a player that matters. If Noah Gray matters, things have gone really bad.
Yes, agreed.
Emmett Johnson at running back 59. I think that's a really good value, honestly, for a very normal backup running back. I don't think he's anything flashy. I don't think he's going to catch passes and give you like PPR upside or anything like that. But I don't think there's 58 better picks at running back before him. Because if Kenneth Walker gets hurt, and we've seen Kenneth Walker get hurt.
I was going to say, he's had some injury problems. So
I think he's a better running back than I think it's Keontae Ingram, who's their RB3.
I was going to say, or don't they have DeMarcado now?
It's
that might be the
DeMarcado,
only other one that
right.
I would be maybe worried about because he had some flashes, but he's been in the league for 5 or whatever years now. So probably nothing.
Yeah. So probably a decent value as a running back handcuff. And then at wide receiver 102, I do actually like drafting Tyquan Thornton.
This is a great selection. He's fun, but hasn't had a lot of usage yet throughout his career. It'd be nice to see him step up into that wide receiver 2 role, but I still think they're going to try and use Worthy, unfortunately. So that justifies the ADP being where it is, but certainly an easy click at that point when you're just kind of hoping for the best anyway. So I'm fine with it.
There's absolutely a world where he becomes the second most productive receiver on the Chiefs. I think he's the only person on that team who can beat man coverage. Like Kelsey's too slow to do it anymore. Worthy's too small.
Yep.
Rashee Rice just has never been able to do that for one reason or another. So this could be an answer. And he's also a guy who you're going to know week 1 or 2 if he's worth rostering. It's not like you're drafting the Brennan Thompson, the guy on the Chargers, or anyone like that, who you kind of have to wait and see. You're going to know if he's a 3 targets per game guy or if he's a 6 targets per game guy. And if he's 6, you made a great draft pick. And if he's 3, you can cut him and you don't feel bad about it at all.
Yep. Track the routes, track the snaps, stuff like that. See if he's worth holding on to. That's all you really need.
Yep. All right, let's get to the Los Angeles Chargers, who have one of the best quarterback picks again on the board at QB8, Justin Herbert. I think that this is a really excellent value pick at quarterback, especially in a guillotine league where you need to you can't be willing to punt at quarterback. I've seen people try it, and I've seen 90% of the time it fail. I think he's a really good gap between the upper level quarterbacks and the guys who are a little bit closer to punting. I think he falls more on the upper level side than the punt, but you don't have to pay that, QB 1 to 5 price tag. You can wait until he's your 4th or 5th best player.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was doing better earlier in the year. Obviously they had a lot of offensive line injuries and stuff that really caused basically their whole game plan to go to crap. So they had to find different ways to win, and that resulted in, shifting kind of some of the core concepts of the offense around. I remember talking about that a lot last year. So
yeah,
I think there's a chance he can bounce back and pay off this ADP. That being said, I probably am more willing to move into the later QBs at this point, just from like trying to get those mid-round wide receivers or running backs. I guess he's QB8, but what round is he going in terms of like a guillotine draft, if we want to talk about it that way? That's probably the biggest question mark, because if he's going in like the third round of a guillotine, I'm probably not going to touch him. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to find him here on.
I got him at 81. I'm on Fantasy Life's ADP tracker, but and that is for the Guillotine League. So that's that's pretty dicey. That might be more like fourth round. But still, I think at that point, like last year, my roster, I went
81 would be a fifth round.
That's fifth round, and okay,
yeah,
cool. So that's not bad, I suppose, but I still might punt
late
at
fourth,
that
early
point.
fifth.
Yeah. But the more interesting thing, sorry, if I can jump in, about you have these notes about pace of play. I was really interested in that. The Chargers were slow. Did you know that Miami, where Mike McDaniel is coming from, was like last in pace of play last year? Like that's his. So it's interesting that we have like this transition that everyone's so excited about Mike McDaniel, and I do think he has good concepts and integrates all the easy button things like motion. And calls good audible or has like a good audible setup, but it's still going to be a slower offense. And so that's pretty interesting.
I think that though we've seen Mike McDaniel run a faster offense in the past. And I would be willing to bet that we can at least see them get to league average-ish. Back before Tua Tagovailoa's brain turned into soup and back when Tyreek Hill was healthy, they ran a high pace of play offense. And I think that a lot of the reason for it last year is no Tyreek Hill. Their best player was Devon Achane. So if your best player is a running back, you're going to have a slower pace of play offense because you're going to want to keep getting him the ball. And run plays are just going to burn more time off the clock than a pass play on average for obvious reasons.
For sure.
I can really see them just airing it out. Like I'm big on Amari and Hampton this year, don't get me wrong, but I mean on a more macro level, you hear Jim Harbaugh talking about, actually, is that one John Harbaugh? No, that's Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, that's Jim Harbaugh. You hear him talking about like waking up in the middle of the night being like, man, I've got to get Justin Herbert into the Hall of Fame. This is probably the year for it, when you've got 2 tackles on rookie deals, you've got good weapons around him, and one of the better offensive play callers in the NFL leading the charge for it. And he's good on the grounds too. So for fantasy, getting him at the QB8 price tag, like I get it, he's going 80th overall or so in a guillotine league. I think that that's a really excellent spot to pick him, honestly, because you don't need to have a great draft. You don't need to hit the upside picks. You just need to not fuck up really bad. And I see a lot of people going around Justin Herbert. Like I like Ramondre Stevenson a lot. He's going around 80. I don't remember the other guy I was going to say as my example there, honestly. But I think we know a lot of what Justin Herbert is. And there's definitely a world where, a wide receiver drafted around pick 80, like a Michael Pittman type of a guy, he's going to be a lot more up and down. He's going to score just fewer raw points than Herbert does.
Sure.
And you need points. You need to be able to lock in your quarterback for at least 15, hopefully 18 or 20 points.
Yeah, he's got to be one of the safer quarterbacks you could possibly pick, for sure. It'll be interesting. We'll talk about the receivers and stuff here in a second, but without Keenan Allen and really no replacement that wasn't already on the roster last year, it's maybe you could see it as a downgrade. Maybe we see some flashy upside from like Trey Harris, who we'll talk about, but
would be cool.
It's and O'Marion Hampton coming back and Keaton Mitchell being there, I think is actually a boon as well to this offense. So it should be a lot of fun. And I think Herbert can benefit from that.
Yeah, let's talk about the running backs real quick. RB9 is Amari and Hampton. I'm going to have him just a little bit lower than that, I would imagine. just because we haven't seen enough, and you want someone who you're a little bit more confident in drafting him as, probably a late round one guillotine pick to early round two. Um, he was he did give you a very reasonable floor, and I do like that. I love the touchdown. I don't really believe in the detractors for the reasons of like the backfield competition. Keaton Mitchell and Mike McDaniel really wanted Keaton Mitchell there,
Mhm.
and the advanced stats, the outside zone versus man gap scheme that they were running last year versus what McDaniel's bringing in. I think he's a really good player and should probably be safe. There's just a couple of guys going after him. Kenneth Walker, namely, Derrick Henry, probably, who I would rather have, who I think are safer opening the year than this guy.
Yeah, and I think he came back from his injury and looked fine, so I'm not really worried about anything like that. But early on in the season, he was looking good. He was running back 14, and I think that as far as like right out of the gates for a rookie running back, that was really, really great. But yeah,
Mhm.
you're drafting him at RB9. You're drafting him ahead of how he ever performed when he was at his peak last year. So
Yeah.
it's very much a projection. One I think worth exploring, but like you kind of said, I think at this cost, I'm avoiding him a little bit more
Mhm.
than some of the other options or wide receivers potentially. And I like Keaton Mitchell. I'm a fan of him, and so I do think that. Well, I don't think he's going to steal the job from Omarion Hampton by any stretch. I think he's going to be someone that will need to be on the field in some regard for this offense to kind of
Mhm.
function. Especially with that loss of Keenan Allen, I think he's kind of like a semi replacement for that in a sense.
Really?
So well, not like straight up in terms of the routes he's
Mhm.
running, but just short passing he's good with. So
Okay.
I think he can help out on in that regard. So I don't think that caps Samarian Hampton's like receiving work too much, but I think it might be enough to where I don't want to draft him here, and I think that's really all it comes down to.
Mhm. So do you think that Amari Hampton plays a full 3 down role, or do you think
I
that
think
they're taking
most,
it? Yeah.
I think most series he will. There may be
Okay.
some maybe like specialty package type things. Mike McDaniel's
2-minute
got
drill
some
type of deal.
some interesting kind of looks he likes to do, so that might result in him coming off the field sometimes. But if it's a longer series, for sure, I think that
Mhm.
you're going to see Keaton Mitchell flexed in a little bit more.
Hop in there.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would be fine with that. That's what you see for basically every running back
Yeah,
nowadays,
yeah, it's hard
except
to
for,
get
like,
much better than that anymore.
yeah. The only thing I'll still say on Amari and Hampton, Raheem Mostert scored 21 total touchdowns for Mike McDaniel a few years ago,
Yeah.
and that was Raheem Mostert. So,
Mhm.
all right, we're gonna move to Lad McConkey, wide receiver 18, um, the very end of the wide receiver ones for Guillotine. So, on the slide, I have it lined up with him and Quentin Johnston, their week by week points, and it was really funny. It was just they were going back and forth, having good
Yeah.
games all the way up until the end when the offense just truly fell apart,
Yep.
which I don't think you can really hold against anyone at that point. Um, I like his deep routes a lot more than the Quentin Johnston deep routes. I don't know where he matches
Mhm.
up with Trey Harris, but as much as it's not intuitive because he's white and his name is Lad McConkey, I think that he is a little bit better suited to play a Tyreek Hill-esque role in the old Mike McDaniel offense than anyone else on this team. I absolutely
Sure.
don't think he's going to be pacing for 2,000 yards at any point this season, but to be the main guy who's, his yards or his routes are breaking 10 or so yards downfield, and he could be coming back, he could be running post or anything to that effect. I think that he is probably the most likely player to be running those more valuable routes. The backside dig, that if you listen to any football podcast, everyone will tell you that Herbert, no, he's the best throw over the backside dig in the NFL. Like this
Mhm.
is the guy who's going to catch him.
Yeah, and I think something that's important is this NFL's kind of shift to the more tight end set, heavier
Hmm.
set kind of offenses that, Ladd is more so coming out of the slot than not. Actually, I don't have the number in front of me, but I think it's up there. And you just got to hope that he stays on the field for those two wide receiver sets. I think he will. I don't think that's a question. But Quentin Johnston will be one of the two, I think, just in terms of prototype. Even though he's not as good of a receiver as Ladd McConkey is. It's just more of a stylistic challenge. Trey Harris, he's more of a 2-to-1 outside to slot guy. So I don't, unless he really steps up in camp to push Ladd McConkey out, that would be the only chance. But as long as he's in on the two wide receiver sets, he's going to be great on three wide receiver sets as usual. That 2.6 yard per route run as a rookie. I mean, he's good. It's just making sure that this offense can stay healthy, make sure he can stay healthy. And then, with the loss of Keenan Allen, I think you could see some target consolidation to just Ladd and Quentin in terms of the wide receivers. So that's good for Ladd in terms of production. So I think he's in for a big year. Wide receiver 18, I think, is very, very acceptable ADP given all that. If you can just, again, if the offense gets injured like it was last year, I mean, what are you going to do anyway? You could have drafted wide receiver 30. It wouldn't matter. So you kind of got to put that in the back of your mind and just trust the process a little bit with Ladd. And I think you can do that this year.
I especially like the what you were saying about the tight ends, because we know that wide receivers, the routes that they run when there are more tight ends on the field, we know that those are more valuable routes because they are better route runners and pass catchers than tight ends. And so when those plays turn into routes, that's more valuable. Adding David Njoku and Charlie Kolar, and we'll talk about the pair of them, I think that will be a huge boost to the ability of him to score points when he's on the field, because we've seen him be able to have a high yards per route run number. It dipped a ton last year, and I think that the guy who we saw his rookie year is a lot closer to who he really is than the guy we saw last year. For those of you watching on YouTube instead of listening wherever you might be listening, you can see on the right, I've got Ladd McConkey points on the left. There it is. Here. I've got Quentin Johnston points on the right here, and it is a game of hot potato where they're just throwing back and forth. Whose turn is it to play like hot ass this week? And for the first month of the year, McConkey was unplayable. And then for the next month, he was great. And during that next month, Johnston was unplayable. And obviously, Johnston had a great first month of the year. This, to me, all right, and I'm gonna run something by you. I like to call this the friends with benefits strategy, where you draft two wide receivers who are on the same team, and you know that they're kind of the top two guys. There's not as much of the, like, I don't really believe in Trey Harris being anything more than like a fun guy this year. I'm not big into Arondé Gasson, so I would really like to get Quentin Johnston if I have Ladd McConkey for this exact reason, for the reason that you're seeing on the right-hand side of your screen, because I'm pretty sure I've got 25 points, or at least a 20-point floor happening between the two of them. I don't know exactly who's going to score which points, but I know that between the two of them, I've got something happening. And that's just the biggest reason I would want to draft Quentin Johnston, because otherwise I think that he has more of the potential to be the more boom or bust guy that we saw last year.
Yeah, I mean, like 25% of his fantasy points were from touchdowns last year, basically. So, and I think it was the same way the year before. And guys like that, I always have trouble with drafting. Whereas a guy like McConkey, where, he didn't have as many touchdowns, but he was mostly reliable in terms of yardage until, like you said, the offense kind of collapsed later in the year. But when everything's in rhythm, he's going to get you 60 yards average, like no sweat. Ladd McConkey. Quentin Johnston, I could see having a 20-yard day just because he wasn't in the cards for the defense that they're playing against or anything like that. So certainly, the lower draft cost it makes a lot of sense. But like last year, I think I had more Quentin Johnston on teams because of that. And it worked out because he did have those weeks. But there were times when he let you down. So it got hard to trust him later in the year. And especially in a Guillotine League, you need to have some level of trust, like we talked about earlier. So, for that, I am mostly out on Quentin Johnston unless he really falls. So, But the
Totally.
consolidation,
Yeah,
like I was
this
talking
is a
about
player
earlier,
who
would be the only thing to bail him out.
right. Mhm. It feels a lot like, for the same team in years past when we would have Keenan Allen as a very solid option, but then every once in a while you would have the Mike Williams explosion game.
Mhm.
I see these guys as very similar to that in the
Yes.
frame of, like, Quentin Johnson is going to have a couple of 25-point games this year, no question. Got no idea when they're gonna be,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
if you have him and McConkey happening at the same time, I'm way more comfortable drafting him than I would be otherwise. Tight end 20, Oronde Gadsden. Genuinely, I do not have a lot of thoughts about Oronde Gadsden. He had 1 month where he really had 2 days where he was awesome. He had a
Yeah.
Thursday night game where he was electric. The game after that was really good, and that was a third of his points.
Yep. Yeah. I think he's a lot of fun to watch, but the usage is not quite there yet.
Mhm.
And he does have, I think, some pass catching chops on the tight end scale for sure. It's just a matter of if he can kind of round out his ability as an all around tight end. I
Mhm.
guess he's not much of an inline guy. So again, those heavier tight end sets, he's going to be basically a pass catcher on most of those. And then was Kolar, right, is coming in.
Yeah,
So he's going to be the other guy there, kind of setting up some of the blocking scheme stuff. So
right. And
he
David
was
Njoku can also
fun.
block.
Yeah, he can. So he's fun, but not trustworthy.
Mhm.
The week one, yeah. Who's their week one matchup? Do you have that top of mind?
I do not.
That's
I
fine. I'm not quite in that mode yet, for the season.
I'm not
Let's see.
either. We'll get there. Oh, they are
We
playing the
got
Cardinals.
Cardinals, so that's actually a decent
Yeah,
matchup.
that's good enough.
But yeah, it's
So
tight end
what does the
20. I mean,
offense
he's a
look like with Mike McDaniel and 2 other tight ends and Alec Ingold? I have this on my note is like
oh sure, yeah,
they signed Alec Ingold, and teams that use fullbacks, they kind of use fullbacks. It kind of hurts the tight end when
right,
you have a fullback out there who's able to do some of the, you know, take some of your snaps as a blocking dirty work guy who can also run a route. Alec Ingold can run a route. He's not a great, you know, not a great route runner by any means, but a lot
yeah,
of the moves that they've made so far this offseason have just pushed us away from Oronde Gadsden breakout.
yeah. The two tight ends going around Gadsden right now within 9 picks either way is
Mhm.
Chigo Conquo and Brenton Strange, both of which I'd
Oh,
much rather have.
yes.
So
Not even
I think
close.
that's kind of the cost opportunity.
100%. Let's talk about a few of the Chargers backups. You mentioned Keaton Mitchell earlier. There's the obvious storyline of Mike McDaniel printed off the wanted posters and posted them up all around the office. I think that this is a fine guy to be like as your last flex as a really questionable RB2 if everything else in your roster got drafted before the RB2. I'd be fine with Keaton Mitchell, I guess. Do you have higher hopes for Mitchell here?
I would definitely prefer him to be flex if
Mhm.
possible. I don't think I want him as a running back too if I can help it, but uh it's one of the things we kind of got to see how it shakes out because he is new to the offense regardless of the wanted posters. So it's a big question mark, but I do know that last year it was like I don't remember exactly how many, but among running backs with 50 or more attempts, he was like fifth in EPA per rush or something like that. So he's
Okay.
really good when he gets going. He's decent in the air as well. So I'm definitely drafting him. I already have him on a bunch of different teams between like best ball and
Mhm.
did I get him in Scott Fishbowl? I don't think I did. I wanted him though. Someone sniped me, but I just always kind of liked him when he played, and I just want to see him get a bigger role. So
Yeah,
again, that might be a little bit of hope being injected there, but it's a good. This
maybe.
is about as good of an opportunity as you can hope for in terms of the
Yeah.
offense he's on, the running back he's behind. I think he
Mhm.
complements O'Marion Hampton well in terms
Yeah.
of the offense. So it's a good spot for him, and I just want to see him get a little bit more work, I guess.
Mhm. I like him more in Guillotine than I do in a best ball or a redraft format.
Sure.
because when I'm drafting in those other formats, I want someone who, like, if the starter goes down, I think they can become effectively a starter. I don't see that with Mitchell. I think that if Amarian Hampton gets hurt, then Keaton Mitchell goes from like a 30-ish% snap share guy to like a 40-ish% snap share guy, and they roll someone else out there in the
Yeah, you don't
Amarian
think they'll
Hampton role.
lean on Keaton Mitchell? I can understand that viewpoint,
Right.
especially with his injury concerns over the years. That's
Mhm.
that's definitely fair.
Yeah.
So I'm not against you
But
on that part.
as a guillotine style running back, I I don't see a difference personally between having him as an RB2 or a flex. Like, visually, I would rather him be a flex, but
Mhm.
at the end of the day, your flex points count as much as your RB2 points. And if you're
Yep.
drafting and your flex is empty and your RB2 is empty, but you think that the wide receiver on the board is going to be better than the running back on the board, just take the receiver.
Mhm.
And that's the situation where I could find myself with Keaton Mitchell RB2, and then get made fun of for having Keaton Mitchell as my RB2, but I'm okay with that.
Well, I won't make fun of you. Someone else might, but not me.
Someone else will. So, David Njoku, we talked about briefly. This is just not a fantasy relevant player. Again,
Yeah, I think
I
he's just
think he's
aging
more of a
out.
signal, right? This is more of a signal that they're going to run more multiple tight end sets, and I think that's good for McConkey or Quentin Johnston when they're on the field. And I think it's rough for Trey Harris, going at wide receiver 65. He is the last Charger that I'm willing to draft. I want to leave as many of my drafts as possible with a Charger. I think that I just really like Mike McDaniel. I think that the line is great. I think that the players are great. And I want pieces of the offense on
Sure.
any and all teams that I draft. And so if I don't get one of those pieces, then I pay the Trey Harris tax down in round 10 or 11 or wherever you have to go to get Trey Harris. Um, he was fine last year in a very limited opportunity. It was a crowded offense. It was a broken offense towards the end of the year, and it took him a while to really get into functional
I,
for
I
that
was gonna
team.
say he was a little better down the stretch. I think they wanted to give him a little
Mhm.
bit more usage when the shit started hitting the fan, so to speak. So
Yeah.
they got a decent look at him. I think that if we're going by talent, there's maybe
Mhm.
like an outside shot he could push Quentin Johnston for more of the outside role in the offense, but I don't think he's a corollary replacement for Lad McConkey by any stretch. So if
No,
Lad's on the field, the other wide receiver is the only opportunity for Trey Harris is to push out Quentin Johnston. So
for
it's
sure.
probably a stretch considering his touchdown prowess. I know they want to use Johnston to score. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a dart. It's a long shot dart for Harris this year.
Yeah. It's more about the association with the team that I think is gonna be really good on offense than it is about, like, him necessarily being a good fantasy asset. All right, let's get to the Broncos. We've got at QB 13 going ahead of Patrick Mahomes, future former first rounder Bo Nix, who was the 59th best player in the NFL according to his peers. Um, Now, on the pros, he averages about 400 yards and 5 touchdowns every year. He's got back-to-back QB7 finishes. He has a great offensive line. They traded for Jaylen Waddle, and he's
hmm
got a good play caller. On the
Yeah.
cons, I've seen him play football, and it hurts.
It's interesting. I get where you're coming from, but also this is almost exactly who we thought Bo Nix was coming into the league. He just
That's
happened to
true.
land in kind of a perfect opportunity to replicate his college numbers, and I think that's
Mhm.
the best way to put it. And he's not the one carrying this offense by any stretch. I don't think anyone is claiming that outside of a few Broncos beat writers. I think I've seen make some
Yeah.
cases using the I don't know if you ever see anyone use the Pro Football Reference comparison tool. Just know that they don't know ball. I mean, that is
Yeah.
like the ultimate. Oh, look at these two stats against each other. No,
Mhm.
that's not really how we do this.
Nope.
So,
Nope. Never
it's
do that.
Bo Nix he's impressed me. Frankly, I mean, I was shocked he was picked as high as he was. I was thinking he was more
Mhm.
of a late first rounder, just given that I think his upside was capped based on ability, but he's played up to the pick as far as I'm concerned. So it's hard to really discredit him too much, even though he is in a good situation. He's done his
Mhm.
job. So, but like you say, using his legs, I think is certainly something that's keeping him afloat on the fantasy radar. I mean, he had a stretch last year where he was like the QB, I don't know, like 1 or 2 for like a 4-week stretch. I don't remember exactly, but that's just coming out of the recesses of my memory here. As probably one of my friends in my home league trounced me with him.
He
As
played,
I had,
he had games against the Giants. He went crazy against the Giants.
yeah, that's right.
Great comeback. They were down, I think, by 2 or 3 scores, and he came back in like the last 10 minutes. Then he had his game against the Cowboys, and everyone had great games against the Cowboys.
Yep. Yes, they did. Yeah. So
on a per play basis, he is not. I think that he is overrated because he produces a lot because he gets a lot of opportunities. Because the defense was awesome. They always had the ball. They dominated teams in time of possession last year. Every Broncos game, they just had the ball for 35 minutes. He led the NFL in pass attempts last year, and he finished 8th in passing yards last year. If the volume doesn't keep up, I think we get really worried. Because 2 years ago when he was QB7, his legs were a lot better. He's touchdowns. Last year, his legs weren't quite as there. The legs still exist. The legs are still there. But if the defense takes a step back, I think we might have problems on our hands.
Yeah. You know, the injection of Waddle to this offense is interesting. I think that is going to provide some market improvement, but he's going against the Chiefs week 1, who have, mostly stifled quarterbacks over the years. So, whether or not that kind of persists into 2026 is yet to be seen. But it is, again, it's kind of like he's not as talented as Justin Herbert, but it's a Justin Herbert type situation. This is just a good offense with a good play caller. And at QB 13, if you are punting, that's a guy who you can just, throw in there and not worry about quarterback for a while, most likely. There's no one that's going to push him for a job, I don't think, at this point. So it's, I mean, we all saw Jarrett Stidham in the playoffs last year, so I think we're safe. So yeah, I mean, like you can plug him in and not worry for a while, I think is the best way to talk about Bo Nix in a guillotine sense. But if I'm looking at like a redraft league, yeah, I'm going to skip over Bo Nix and go for someone with more upside.
Totally. All right. At RB32, RJ Harvey, who is, I think no one has had the same opinion on RJ Harvey that I've spoken to all year. This is not, I'm going to start by saying this is just not a guillotine type of a running back. I think that if everyone has a different opinion on a guy, we don't know enough for me to want to start my year with him. If I'm wrong and he turns out being great, then I don't feel that bad. But if I think he's going to be good and I'm wrong and he turns out being bad, then I feel way worse because then I'm already behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, J.K. Dobbins is, he was better last year. It's hard to say it any other way. And, I think I was just trying to pull news on Dobbins. I don't know how he's doing with injuries and all that. I think he's going to be okay coming into the year. But, this is a tandem running back room at the very worst. So
yeah,
it's a matter of who's going to, if you think someone's going to run away with it, who is it? And what are the chances that even happens? And I think both running backs have their pros and cons. So it's never going to be one is going to run away with it. I don't think anyone is outright better. And I think if Dobbins is running better like he was last year, they're going to go, okay, well, let's keep this even keeled so that we can keep him healthy all year. And so we don't have the same playoff woes, like we did last year. Granted, more because of the quarterback, but still, I think just having everyone healthy is always very important for that kind of stuff. And they have playoff aspirations, again, 100% with the moves they're making and stuff like that. So it's going to be hard to trust RJ Harvey on any given week, but he had some flashes, and I think that he could progress as an NFL runner for sure.
That is something that we have to keep in mind. He played wide receiver for most of his career. And then I don't remember where he played in college, but 2 years before he was drafted, they bulked him up and converted him to running back, and he was excellent. And he still flashes that great receiving ability, and that gives him the upside to, well, if he can improve as a runner, then you can see the dominoes start to fall for him to be closer to the every down type of runner with really good pass catching upside. I just don't think that you do that in a year. I think that that's something you see be
Yep.
more of a slow burn. Now, if I'm drafting RJ Harvey in a guillotine league, I think there is a reason for it. I think that if you're at the turn, at one turn or another, and RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins are both on the board, you can go ahead and get both of them. And similarly to Lad McConkey and Quentin Johnston, I figure between the two of them, there's going to be minimum 18 points a week.
Yeah.
Harvey was a much better touchdown scorer than Dobbins. He was a much better catcher of the football, but Dobbins is probably going to be the better week one guy.
Yeah, RJ Harvey is a touchdown scorer. I mean, I was looking at his college stats after you mentioned that, and he scored 22 touchdowns on the ground, 3 through the air his last year at UCF. So he's a banger for sure. And, you know, if you get down to the goal line, I think they're going to prefer to use him over Dobbins for the health concerns too. So there certainly is that touchdown upside, something that's always very, very possible. So it's that's not a bad, I think between the two, you'd average over a touchdown a game or a week, I mean, on your fantasy team. So that's a fair way to look at it, I guess, in terms of going for a long-term play. And then if one gets injured, then you're left with like a bona fide running back, running back. And you can fill it in with a waiver guy or something. So that makes sense too.
100%. And yeah, I didn't know that he scored 25 touchdowns in his final college season. And that's something that just sticks. And I don't fully understand, because you always hear in football that touchdowns are very fluky, but like guys who scored touchdowns in college, they just keep scoring 100%. Them in the pros.
So I have a stats degree, and I've done, you know, a lot of my work in the fantasy space is very numbers driven. So like I did a research coming out of college, very similar. It's like one of the most predictive stats that we can pull from college is touchdowns, which is so strange to think about, but it's very interesting how it works like that.
Let's talk about a Bronco that I'm way more excited about. At wide receiver 19, we've got Jaylen Waddle. They traded a first-round pick for him, and it's probably the quietest first-round pick that's ever been traded in the last decade of the NFL. I mean, Devontae Adams was traded for a first-round pick. Tyreek Hill was traded for a first-round pick. I mean, there was some change happening there. There was some change on the Jaylen Waddle trade as well. But when those trades happened, it was loud and it was talked about a lot. And with Jaylen Waddle, we're not getting that, even though I think he's proven that he's per game an excellent wide receiver one type of guy in the right situation. I think this is the right situation for him. And there's just a ton of target. There were so many passes that they threw last year where you would be watching the game and you'd be like, why are you throwing to that guy? Why is Troy Franklin getting 104 targets? Why is Evan Ingram getting targeted? Period. There were 180 targets between Troy Franklin and Evan Ingram alone. I'm not saying that they're all going to Jaylen Waddle, but like we can give the majority of those to Jaylen Waddle and keep the rest of the offense as is. And it would probably be huge for this guy.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a very good match for Cortland Sutton on the other side too.
Totally.
You know, he's getting older. He's more of a, you know, kind of down the field jump catch kind of guy at this point in his career. Still very solid. But he is just getting older, and I think that's just going to come in time. And Jaylen Waddle's still, God, what is he, 26? Is he even 27 yet? He's still on the younger side. So, you know, he has an opportunity to come out here and be like the quick guy, getting the crossers, running the ball upfield, getting maybe like some jet sweeps, stuff like that. I think they could do some fun stuff with him. So I'm excited. You know, I'm always hesitant about wide receivers switching teams because that can be very daunting. Like I think the percentage for hits is not great when it comes to wide receivers switching teams and like living up to their peak on their old team and stuff like that. So it's sketchy still. And you have to, you know, hope that he adjusts fine and that Bo Nix meshes with him well and stuff like that.
Right.
But again, it's a promising situation. This should be a good offense. There should be some touchdowns to be had by everyone involved. And if Sutton's aging out, a lot of those receiving ones are going to go to Waddle. I don't think Evan Engram is any considerable threat for touchdowns or red zone looks or anything like that. So, I'm pretty excited. It's just a harder kind of button click, I think, at wide receiver 19. You're putting a lot of trust in him there. And I think he lives up to it, but it's there's some other options that might be interesting too. So I think that's what it comes down to.
Sure. I think at where he's going and where he's performed for the last couple of years, like on lackluster, to be generous, Dolphins offenses, and the way that he was still able to make things happen. It wasn't as high flying as we had seen in the past in 2021 and 2022. But every week except for one, when Tua Tagovailoa played last year, he had 7 or more points. And at wide receiver 19, I would like that line to be double digits, but at wide receiver 19 on a much better team and a much better offense and one with a much faster pace of play that's not as run heavy, I think you can see that floor increase. Probably going to get another at least 1.5, maybe 2 targets per game relative to last year. And, I was harsh on Bo Nix earlier in the episode, but like a Bo Nix target is worth probably 2 or 3 Tua Tagovailoa targets. So
at this point in their careers, yes,
yeah.
that is true.
I'll definitely take that. I think that there's a very good chance of him being a guy who he doesn't have to be the headliner of your team, but like as your second, maybe third best player on a Guillotine team, being a guy who can sort of anchor the lineup around because he's given you something.
Yeah.
I have very little to say about Courtland Sutton, a wide receiver 34. This is a very no-nonsense, what you're getting out of him sort of pick. Like any wide receiver in this range, he's going to be a little up and down. He's going to have some weeks where he disappoints you. But at the end of the day, this is still a good player. He's still going to catch probably at least 8 touchdowns this year, I would imagine. He's going to run a ton of routes. He's not going to leave the field. And he's on a pass-first team. There's not a lot to say against Courtland Sutton. I don't think anyone expects him to do great things this year unless Jaylen Waddle, who has had injury concerns in the past, if he goes down for a few weeks, then you would see some really, really hot button Courtland Sutton stuff. But for the most part, I think this is just a very, very aggressively normal wide receiver 34.
He's the epitome of the guy who keeps falling on draft boards and people keep drafting for those upside, like fancier, shiny players.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy who's like on auto draft takes him and he ends up being a solid wide receiver too all year long. I mean, so like last year, he had the second most targets of his career, even though he was, 30 years old. He didn't do as much with it, but he still scored 7 touchdowns. And I think that's very likely around what he's going to get again this year. So he's boring, but fine. I think that's the best way you could put it. Waddle being there does cap the upside. But again, at this point in his career, I think the upside is already fading. So exactly. Yeah. So it's fine. He's just a fine pick. That's the best way to put it.
He's very clearly the second option on this team in targets. No one's remotely close to him. And it's hard to find people in good offense who are going to be the second target on their team at that stage of the draft. He's going around pick 60, pick 70, I think. And so that's just a good time to hit the button, especially in a PPR league. At tight end, Evan Engram is a former first-round pick.
Welcome back, Gary Treeman.
That's genuinely, welcome back, Gary. That's genuinely all I feel the need to say about Evan Engram. I don't think he matters for fantasy football.
Nope. There's way better options, probably even later than him, if I'm being honest. So,
I'm
not going to draft him in any leagues.
Yep, cool. Let's move on from him.
All right.
So the backups, we've already talked about J.K. Dobbins at RB 35. I actually have him for guillotine purposes as a standalone player. I have him ranked ahead of RJ Harvey for now, and we'll see where training camp and preseason lead us. I want him to start the year and get me roughly 10 points every every week or so, you're going to get him late and you're going to be pretty happy with him. He does get the Chiefs in week 1. The Chiefs have been a stingy run defense. Um, and they've still got good linebackers. They've still got big guys up the middle. But for the most part, this is still a productive running back who's probably going to outsnap RJ Harvey for the first month or so of the year.
Yeah. We talked about him. I'm in the same boat. I think Dobbins is a better runner right now. That could change throughout this year or into next year or whatever, but he's going to be a fine start early in the year, and that's fine.
Yeah. I also think that later in the year, I think that you're going to get a discount on J.K. Dobbins because later in the year, you might see RB52 Jonah Coleman start cutting into his workload. I think Coleman's way more likely to cut into Dobbins than he is to cut into Harvey. And but again, for Guillotine, that part of the year just doesn't really matter when I'm drafting J.K. Dobbins. By the time that we get to week 9 or week 10, I'm not starting J.K. Dobbins. I've got a better player to start than J.K. Dobbins. And so I don't really care if Jonah Coleman is eating into his workload. I care that he got me to week 9 or week 10, and I figure it out from there. But for Jonah Coleman specifically, this is not a Guillotine pick. This is the opposite of the guys who we talked about at the beginning of the show, who you drafted with your last picks, the backup running backs who could have become starting running backs. Coleman is not that guy. If Dobbins or Harvey go down, he's an RB2. He's an injury away from being an injury away.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just not what you want with these late picks. You want someone who you feel no remorse cutting and has a realistic chance to do something in week 1. Coleman's not going to do something week 1. Just period.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was just say that at the end of the last year, RJ Harvey, he was soaking up like most of the snaps when Dobbins was out. So it's not going to be back to a tandem between two different guys. It's going to be one or the other if one of them gets injured. And then still just another, like you said, 2 injuries away.
Right. Coleman's best case scenario is that, basically. And that's going to take time. And by the time that time comes, you've already cut him. Wide receivers 67, I believe 74 and 78 are Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, and Marvin Mims.
Yeah.
Are we drafting any of these guys?
I don't know. Troy Franklin does interest me the most out of them. Early in the year last year, I mean, we thought he was going to be, maybe potentially taking over the wide receiver 1 position for this team. And it kind of faded out. And then they went back to kind of like a cycle between those couple guys. I mean, each other games, I think Marvin Mims is mostly done at this point. Bryant or Franklin are better options, but I mean, yeah, if one of them just like kind of falls in the draft and you just need a little extra depth on wide receiver, sure, why not? Cortland Sutton could, get injured or something like that.
True.
He's been mostly reliable, but Waddle's missed a few games here and there throughout his career too. So I don't know. I think if you draft him, you're cutting him. That's kind of the boat I'm in with him. So no, probably
early
not.
cut candidate that you're looking for a flash on. I view all 3 of those receivers as kind of the same.
Yeah.
I guess I view Mims as less than the other 2, but like there's a world where any of them can have a good week 1 and then trick you into starting them week 2, and then they do nothing for you in week 2.
Yeah. And we're done with the division. Oh, no? We got one more? Okay.
No, we've got one more. We can probably do that one more in 3 minutes. QB 35. My notes here are, God, the Raiders are so bad. Like, very bad. Please, I don't want to talk about this team. This guy was awful for the Falcons. Kirk Cousins exists for one reason and one reason alone for Guillotine Fantasy Football, and it's when someone tries to wait on quarterback and they're picking at one of the ends of the draft. And we saw this happen. Who did this happen to last year for us?
I don't remember.
I think it was Ben Cummins. Maybe.
Did he get sniped on him? Is that what?
No, so last year Ben was picking at like 17 or 18, and he decided he was going to try to get too cute with quarterback, and he drafts like 2 bench guys over a starting quarterback, and then he lets the entire league make 34 freaking picks before he gets to draft a starting quarterback.
That's right.
Yeah. Was I right? Was it Ben?
I think so. If this is him, was he at the second to last pick?
Mm-hmm.
Looks like he drafted Shedeur Sanders in the last round.
He did. Yes. He had Shedeur Sanders week 1 starting quarterback.
That's one way you can play the game, I guess. But
that is the only reason I'm drafting Kirk Cousins is if someone decides to bin and try to get cute with it, and so then everyone else just soaks up the rest of the quarterbacks so that they get a freebie week 1 at his expense. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was just gonna say I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, so I had the pleasure of watching the best of Kirk, and those days are long gone at this point.
Oh,
and even then, I mean, I comp him to the Invisible Man in Mystery Men, if you recall. He's only invisible when you don't look at him. So, like, what's the point in your superpower if you can't utilize it when you need it most? He folds under the primetime lights and stuff like that. So. Yeah, I mean, what's he going to do except fill in until Mendoza's ready? That's what he's there for, just to make sure it's not a complete dumpster fire.
Right. He's there to start for probably like 4 games before the calls for Mendoza start drowning out anything else that's being said about that team. I don't think they make it the full year like they're talking about. Not even close. At RB5, we've got Ashton Jeanty. I'm gonna get ahead of it quick. That's too high for Ashton Jeanty in a Guillotine league. This is we don't know what the offensive line looks like. We don't trust the quarterback. I don't think that they're going to be able to throw to anyone but Brock Bowers. He's a volume guy, sure, but I don't know how much is on the field. He's one of the better running backs in the NFL. Like if you said, our Ashton Jeanty is the 5th best running back in the NFL, I could easily talk myself into that. I thought he was really good last year, despite the numbers not really bearing it out. I don't think that was as much on him. And he is in a good scheme for him. I don't really mind Clint Kubiak doing the 2 running back approach in Seattle. He did that because he had 2 good running backs.
Sure.
Ashton Jeanty is 1 good running back, and there's not a 2nd good running back. He's going to dominate the workload, and he's in a system, like I said, that I think is going to be very good for him. He was excellent last year in zone carries, or not necessarily excellent. He was much better than he was in other carries when he was carrying against zone running schemes, carrying 4 zone running schemes, excuse me. And that's what we should see a lot of out of Kubiak. To me, it's more of just, I don't think this offense starts the year well, and you're probably going to see Ashton Jeanty on your waiver wire within 5 weeks of the start of the season.
For Guillotine League, I think that's fair. If you want to make kind of like a bull case here, it would be Kubiak coming in, and then they brought in Tyler Linderbaum as the center, who's very good. And last year, the only position on the offensive line that didn't basically get swapped out every single game was the right tackle. So that's like your case is that, coming into the season with a healthy line, with a run, a good run scheme coach, you could see some bounce back and Jeanty can overcome that. Now the limitations of the offense is outside of the tight end. There's really not a prolific pass catcher on this team, and maybe that means the offense stalls out. That could also mean that Ashton Jeanty sees 80 targets or something, and they're all negative ADOT targets or something. But you could just see that PPR kind of explosion, maybe similar to like Barkley's rookie year kind of a thing. It was so many targets, and they were so low depth, but it doesn't matter because it's you get those points all the same. Yeah.
There's no one else to give the ball to. If you're dropping back, he's the only guy open. He's going to be able to get positive yardage. I don't think anyone else on that Giants team after the Odell and who was the other wide receiver? They had another good wide receiver on that team.
Then
I'm not gonna.
Let's not sit here and how.
Yeah, we don't have to do that either. But I think that the running backs going after him are guys I would rather have on my team than Ashton Jeanty. James Cook is the RB6 right now. It makes no sense that the guy who led the NFL in rushing last year and is on a team with Josh Allen should be going behind Ashton Genty. I know Ashton Genty's great, but like there are other things that matter other than talent here.
Talking about guys who've been on this episode, I might take Kenneth Walker over Ashton Genty. I don't have to, that's not like the ADP, but I think he's going to have a better year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Wide receiver 62. Not actually the lowest wide receiver one on a team. The Dolphins, I checked, had a lower top wide receiver getting drafted. First of all, for those of you who are just listening, I'm sorry you don't get to play this game. Kent, on the left of your screen, there are 5 wide receivers. Can you tell me which of them is Trey Tucker?
I promise you I didn't cheat. And
okay.
I don't, like, I'm a stats guy. So I do watch the film. Like, I watch the games, obviously. I never really know the pictures all that well. It's always been like a problem of mine. People be like, just throw up a picture on Twitter of a player like, this is the guy you need to draft. And I'm like, who is that? Tell me who it is. So I'm coming from that background. I think it's middle right.
Middle right.
Yeah. That's my guess.
I'm gonna be honest. I made these slides 4 days ago. I don't remember who some of these players are.
Okay. All right.
I don't remember who middle right is. No, it's bottom left. This is Trey Tucker. I'm scrolling over him with my mouse. That's really? Our guy. Yes. I remember this is
it's funny. I don't think that picture, like, I'm looking at other pictures of him now, and I don't think that picture of him you have there looks like him even. So that's so funny.
I agree. That was also
that's
part of it.
That was a good game there.
Yeah. I like doing those sort of games every now and then. I did that with the Saints wide receivers a year ago, and I made up a bunch of names, and then I put the Saints wide receivers not named Olave or Rashid Shaheed in there, and it was a bad look. But
yeah,
wide receiver 62.
Yeah, I was gonna say he really was just like okay on an NFL level last year and really unusable in a fantasy level. So now that they've added
for that one game,
the one game, what was it? The hat trick, right? Was that last year? Okay,
against Washington in week 2.
Yeah, and then after that it was nothing. But
it was so funny.
Yeah, it's because they also have, and we'll go through these, I guess. But is it Deontay Thornton? Who was the other one that people thought was going to step up, and he really didn't do anything? Jack Besh, who was not really that good last year. He could step up this year. He was always little bit of a project coming into the league. So maybe. But Jalen Naylor acquisition is probably capping any of their, like, I think they're all just going to be unusable. Unfortunately, it's just going to be Genty and Bowers, and that's really all you can use.
I mean, the thing is, though, in an 18-person league, one of these guys will be usable. Like, early in the season, you're gonna be able to get some cheap starts out of one of these guys. So, like, as gross as it is, I'm probably more than willing to draft these guys late onto my bench, because, like, one of them is maybe a thing. If you believe in the Kirk Cousins to Jalen Naylor connection, they played 2 seasons together in Minnesota, in which Jalen Naylor did absolutely nothing. But they've practiced together. They're somewhat familiar with each other. You could convince me that Jalen Naylor outperforms his wide receiver 73 price tag.
It's a super high bar to clear, but boy, we're gonna get him there. Yeah. He's the most exciting of the group, I think, is the fairest way to say it. In regards to those 4 guys. But yeah, it's I would take Naylor in hopes that he can be a flex player. That's the best case scenario I think you can get out of the entire wide receiver room.
A low end 8 PPR points flex, which is Hey,
I was going to say, okay, and I did go to check. Oh, sorry. One thing real quick on Naylor. We mentioned his usage with the Vikings was basically nothing. He was a 6th rounder coming into the NFL. So the fact that he went and built his way up to the contract he did get with the Raiders, which Wasn't lucrative, but I think it was decent.
Yeah,
Good for him. I just want to say, and I think he has a chance to earn a role here.
I think so too. I do have a note on here that he is one of the 20 best separators in the NFL just by fantasy points data average separation score. Part of that is influenced by playing alongside Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, but there are other people who play with good wide receivers who did not do that.
Yep.
All right. In Cincinnati, Andre Yoshivas couldn't separate for the life of him, and he was playing with a better tandem. So he's done cool things. I'm willing to, I can be excited as one can be about Jalen Nailor. I can be that excited about Jalen Nailor, I bet.
Yeah.
All right. Tight end 2 should be tight end 1 by the time draft season rolls around. Brock Bowers. I feel like everyone has decided they're going to rank Brock Bowers above Trey McBride. I think everyone's right to do so. He's not going to live in this tight end 2 range for long. Despite the injuries, despite the offense being awful last year, he never dipped below 8.8 PPR points. And that's a position where, like, if the guy you draft around later in Colston Loveland has an 8.8 PPR point day, it's like, yeah, okay. It's fine. You're not going to be too mad about that. I'm not going to be too mad about any tight end getting me, probably more points than what half of the starting guillotine tight ends get in week 1. So I like him for that reason. I like him a lot more than I like Trey McBride, who by every measure does in fact scream a regression candidate. And I think he's probably going to dominate targets in a way that we're not going to see any other tight end do because of the wide receivers that we just talked about.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting that the 2 top tight ends this year are both on just objectively bad offenses. And the fact that they could be the ones to carry your team in fantasy this year. I don't know. It's just a funny kind of juxtaposition, but Brock Bowers is one of the best, most natural catchers of the football. He's not like the craziest athletic person either. You always see those pictures. He's like so unassuming. And when he's on the field though, he just plays like a monster. It's
looks
really
like a
awesome
medieval
to watch.
footman.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen it described as,
So yeah, I mean, lock it in. He's a top end tight end. If you're planning to like go with your build to be a tight end heavy one, it's pretty easy to take him, middle, in guillotine leagues, middle end of the first if you're lucky. And then just build around that with some more reliable, kind of skill position players after that. But yeah, he's going to be fine, and has a later bye week too. I just checked, so luckily you can throw him in there for a long time and not
that is
worry
very
about
nice.
it. Yeah.
The other thing I like most about the Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, and I guess Loveland, but I'm not as in on Loveland tier of players, is that when those guys hit the waiver wire, everyone is going to be bidding on them, and already having them means you don't have to worry about that. If I have Brock Bowers and Trey McBride hits the waiver wire, everyone else in the league has a worse tight end than Trey McBride. Everyone else wants Trey McBride. And you're going to see them go for probably too much. Like that. That's one thing I've noticed. Even in leagues with really smart people, the elite tight ends go for way more fab than what they're worth. They don't score.
It's like it usually takes like 75, 85%, right? Depending on the week to get those guys.
Yeah. Like
sometimes even upwards of every dollar, but depends on where we're at.
Right. Yeah, I think that by the end of the year, it's really hard to give numbers or percents, and it's entirely just what is the league's market evolved into. But even still, like Trey McBride last year was going for 15-ish points per game. I want to say he averaged maybe 16, but people were bidding on him like he was Christian McCaffrey. I saw people bid on him higher than Christian McCaffrey in the same fab cycle in a league of what I think are very good players. Because everyone needs. Go ahead. Sorry,
I just kind of lost you on the internet there. But I was going to say he also had was it? Oh no, it was Kyle Pitts. I'm sorry. Bowers had one of the best like tight end games of all time, but then I think Pitts topped him like a week later or something like that. So he's just so fun. And
yeah, he dropped to 40. He gives 40-point performance early in the year.
that's right. So
it was like the first game back from injury.
Yeah, just an alien.
Yeah, this guy's
alien
awesome.
football robot, like
awesome.
the coach said. Yeah.
Yes. So fun. Okay. And now we have to talk about the worst players on the Raiders before we can get out of here. RB60, Mike Washington, similar to Keaton Mitchell, but worse in every way, I feel like.
Yeah, that a lot worse too is probably my assessment.
Yeah, probably a lot worse.
I was going to say, who even are the other running backs on this team? Because I might consider them more so than
Amir
Mike
Abdullah
Washington
still on this team? I want to say Amir Abdullah is happening.
I
would bet they still
Connor
have
Hayward, Dylan Laub, Chris Collier.
That's right.
Oh man, no. Okay, so there really aren't many good options. So maybe Mike Washington's fine, but they're all bad options.
I think they're gonna sign Isaiah Pacheco after he gets cut by the Lions week 1.
Yeah, and if Genti did go down, and I don't know, for some reason this team is not just and whatever they're at, I could see them signing one of the elder veterans like Najee Harris or someone like that to just fill the gap. But rather than
whatever Cardinals running back gets cut, the Cardinals have too many running backs. One of them is I think one of the Cardinals running backs ends up in Detroit and not on the Raiders because of the offensive coordinator over there, who I forget the name of, but was the Cardinals head coach last year.
That's for the Lions?
Yeah.
God, I'm drawing a blank. You're right.
Yeah, me too. It's also just one of the most normal white dude names of all time.
Oh, Drew Petzing?
Oh, yeah, Drew Petzing. Okay, not quite as normal. There's a Z in that. Anyways, Mike Washington just feels like a change of pace back who, again, at a very cheap cost, willing to draft just because he might do something week 1. 30%-ish of the snaps on a bad team is still better than a lot of what you're seeing at around RB60. You know, I'd rather have him than any of the slop fest backfields, at least as of now. Now, if they go out and they sign Najee Harris, which they might and they should, or if they sign even a Kareem Hunt type of guy, it kind of goes out the window. But for now, RB60, I think, is a pretty... I've talked myself into it as a reasonable pick just because, I mean, it's him and Dylan Laube.
Yeah. It's
mentioned... Yeah.
It's late. Late in the draft. It's who cares?
Do whatever you want, man.
Yeah.
Speaking of late in the draft, very late in the draft, at wide receiver 88, Jack Besh, who I think is going to be really hurt by the existence of Michael Mayer. He was a second-round pick just a year ago out of TCU. I was playing in a dynasty league, and I kind of liked Jack Besh coming out, and someone offered me like Cortland Sutton for Jack Besh and a 4th-round pick, and I turned it down, and that's haunted me ever since then.
Yeah,
that was brutal.
I can see that. Yeah, I mean, it took him 4 years to get to 1,000 years in college. And last year he only had like 3 games above 3 targets on a team that really didn't have a reason to not involve him more. So that's kind of a sketchy situation there. And, you know, the inclusion of Jalen Naylor now, and, you know, the other 2 guys that have been playing better than him.
The existence of Dante Thornton.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know how you're ever going to have a week where you're like, yeah, I want to play Jack Besh right now. I want to start
Jack Besh.
I don't think I'm ever going to feel that this year. I could be wrong, but I think that's mostly accurate.
If we ever get to the point where it's like, yeah, I want to start Jack Besh, something has gone horrendously and irreparably amiss. So we pray that wide receiver 88 Jack Besh does not matter. Would much rather have Tyquan Thornton going probably 20 picks after that. Tight end 43, though, I genuinely think is a sneaky pick. Michael Mayer. He might be like their 3rd best target getter if they don't throw it to Ashton Genty a ton. It's pretty obvious that they want to run things similar to what they ran in Seattle with a lot of tight ends. And he's a good player. He was also a second round pick not long ago, except he's shown that he can play NFL football, and we haven't seen that out of Jack Besh. Um, he is going to be at the top of every Dynasty Sleeper article next year, next offseason, when he leaves and signs
New
somewhere
team?
else.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good take.
Right. And so does that matter here? The targets have to go somewhere. They're going to throw the ball. It's really hard for me to say that Jack Besh or Dante Thornton are going to be more involved in the offense than Michael Mayer. I get that it's a second tight end, and it's really rare to see two tight ends do things, but you also see Brock Bowers as less of an inline player. You can almost imagine Brock Bowers as more of a really good wide receiver who sometimes lines up in line, but I could see a world where Michael Mayer is like second or third in routes run, week 1 or 2.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe in routes run. The targets remains to be a question that I think I could get on board with, but certainly if there was another health related issue with Bowers or something like that,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
he did get 7 targets that first week. Bowers was out, turned into 50 yards. He was good. He wasn't great. I think he could be better. That team last year was atrocious, so you kind of have to involve that in the calculation too. But yeah, it's the can I put him in my lineup is the only question. And I don't, again, it's similar to Jack Besh. I just don't know if I'm going to say, yeah, Michael Mayer, get in there. I'm ready for you now. But it's if we're a better offense, I could maybe be on board or like let's say, Mendoza comes in this offense and everyone's healthy and things are humming like down the stretch in the year. I could see picking him up for cheap. I'm, either off waivers or as a free agent middle of the year and then getting some usage out of him. That's a possibility. So I'll give you that.
I could also see him being a favorite target of Fernando Mendoza just because whenever they're running their plays in practice and Mendoza's at QB2, Mayer's at tight end 2. And so if they can establish a connection happening there, something could happen. It'll be too late in the year for him to matter in that situation. But again, I think he's a good player. This is a team devoid of good players. If you're throwing darts, that's another guy. You're going to know week 1 if he's worth keeping or not.
That's fair. Yep.
And with that, we're going to ask Kent Weyrauch what he thinks about LeBron James signing in Philadelphia.
Oh, man. So there was like an outside shot. He was going to go to the Timberwolves. And I'm not a huge NBA head, so, take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I would have been pretty hyped to see the Timberwolves go into the year with LeBron on that squad. I think that would have really boosted our potential going all the way through the Western. So I don't really have any big takes about the 76ers. I don't know a lick about their team, so I can't tell you much there.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your work at draftaxis.com.
Yeah, so I mostly come from a fantasy space. I've been at over the years Pro Football Focus. I was with the Fantasy Footballers, Number Fire, now FanDuel. Draft Axis was kind of a hobby project of mine I had been thinking about for a while. I like watching and paying attention to the NFL draft every year. I started tracking stuff with like draft visits and what that means for different teams. So I turned it into a website that I can kind of play around with that data that I've been collecting, and I made a pretty cool kind of tool set in regards to what these different NFL GMs are doing during the draft, and something that is very difficult to predict every year. So trying to kind of push the envelope in terms of what we can do with that, and had some fun with it. You can find me on Twitter. I hate to tell you this at the end of the episode. It's at Kent Weyrauch. It's actually like a question, like Weyrauch when you can roll, but
really,
it's super German spelling. I don't blame you. I've heard every variation of it over the years, so it's fine. But no, it's cool, man. And there might be some future fantasy football projects coming as well that I can't really talk about right now. So hopefully we'll hear about that soon. We'll see. But
okay,
that's where I'm at right now.
I very much look forward to the secret fantasy football projects. But with that,
Yeah.
I'll thank you very much for coming, taking some time
Yeah,
out
thanks
of
for
your
having
day
me.
to come talk some Guillotine Fantasy Football. Thank you, everyone who's watching and listening. We always really appreciate you tuning in, and we'll catch you all next time on the Don't Get Last Guillotine podcast.